Hey there, this is Thomas at LifterLMS. I just got a small update, LifterLMS 2.7.0, coming at you any moment now. We're just going to demo a couple of the new features included in LifterLMS 2.7.0. So we're going to get started. I'm going to share my screen, show you a little bit around the back end of what's new. Everybody is likely familiar with the LifterLMS account settings where you can enable and disable various pieces of information about the user profile during registration. And if you're familiar with it, you also may have sent us a support request or voted on a feature to expose this data on the admin panel, because as a site administrator, as a teacher, you can't see any of this data. Your student can go in there, he or she can edit all their data, they add that information in, we store it in the database, and then we haven't given you any way to actually see these options as a site administrator. So we've heard your request, we realized that was silly, and we've built some new features around this so that you can expose, so all that data has been exposed to you as an admin. So just to illustrate what's going on here, you'll see right now I have this require billing address field disabled. And that's important to note, because regardless of these settings, all of the custom fields that LifterLMS creates, which are all the billing fields, and then the phone number field, all of those fields are going to be enabled, are going to be exposed to you regardless of whether or not these settings are enabled. So that's important, because if you want to, say, record some user data that you gain some other way, you can do that regardless of whether or not you're requiring your users to enter that information during registration. It's also important because you might want to change those settings at some point. So say you've required billing address for the past 6 or 8 months, and then you determine you don't need that anymore. You disable that. You don't want to lose all of that data. You don't want to lose the ability to review all that data. And I'd also just like to note, in case anybody's curious, that we've always had this information in the database. So as soon as you update any of your user data that's already there, you're going to be able to view now on your admin panel. So that's enough kind of mucking around. Let's actually look at some of this stuff on the admin panel. To look at it, you're going to want to go to your users, and from this user table, just edit any user, and scroll to the bottom, and there's this LifterLMS extra information area. And these are all those fields, and you'll see, like I said, even though that field is disabled currently, you can still see this data for a user. Now, this user doesn't have any data, but if you want to enter an address for them, a city, state, whatever, phone number, you can put all that information in, save it, and then it's there for you when you want. Now, this user too, these fields are tied together. This is the data that the user sees. But the user is only going to see this data if those fields are enabled in your account settings. So I'm going to go there and enable that real quick and just load up a new user. You'll notice my beautiful color scheme choices on this local website here. I'm just going to take down his email address too. And we're going to register this user. Oh, not agree to the terms. Let me try that again. So let's register this user. And you'll see over here, the user can come over and edit all of their user information. And now if I go back to my user table, and I just plug this email address I've got on my clipboard in here. And now when we look at this user on the admin panel, we'll have all that same address information available. And say they call me up and they say, hey, Thomas, I'd like to change my phone number. It's now that string of nonsense. I can update that there. My user comes back, they'll see that information has been synced on their profile as well. So it goes both ways. And now, like I said, if we go and we disable those couple fields here and say we don't want to require any of that stuff anymore during registration, when we go back over, you'll still be able to see these fields, and our user will no longer be able to see those fields. So that's a little bit about that. We also, for anybody who's interested as a developer, lots of people have been asking about adding custom fields. We're working on documentation around there. So these are all the filters, and we'll post this in the notes, for how to edit stuff on the admin panel, get these fields displayed, validate, and saved on the admin panel. And we're working on overhauling the actual registration functions too. So we'll have a set of filters similar to these for doing the same thing on the front end, a little bit easier than it is currently, and have it more well documented. The other major feature too, while we're looking at this user profile, is that there is no longer a membership levels area with a set of checkboxes. That was kind of a legacy feature that we had built out really, really quickly as a way to manage students into and out of a membership before we had come up with the students tab that you're familiar with from a course. So if we look at a course, everybody should be familiar with this students tab where we can add and remove students manually from a course. And you used to have to go over to your user profile and check and uncheck some boxes in order to add or remove a student from a membership. And now we've basically ported this same bit of functionality over. So if I go over to my membership, there's now a students tab over here. Looks exactly the same, works exactly the same. So if I want to add my new guy, Demetria Wolf, I can add that student to this membership really, really easily. And then we'll see that Demetria has been added here. And just like the the students tab on the memberships, when we add and remove students, or if we add a student, we just keep a record of that on the LifterLMS orders screen. So you'll see Demetria just got a free enrollment, and then we note too in here that the payment method was assigned by an administrator. So that's just a bit of new functionality that's useful, and it's also useful to note that any engagements or auto enrollment functions that would happen as a result of being added to a membership will now function correctly on that page. So we'll see this course was on the auto enrollment tab of that membership. Let me get back over there and just show you that. So when I enrolled that member, it was auto enrolled into this test course. So that's something else that was not functioning properly on our legacy membership enrollment with the checkboxes, which is now functioning here. There's a couple other less exciting bug fixes and typos and small updates included in 2.7.0, but this is the gist of it. Thanks so much for your support, and keep creating great content. Take care.